All right, so Rick, I heard you were a big fan of the stands, and I know this is the question all the Survivor fans want to know.
Yeah.
What's better? Is it the book or is it the Gary Sinise miniseries or the new miniseries? I don't know if you've seen the new one that just came out.
It's not the new miniseries. I can tell you that. Unfortunately, it's got to be the book. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I'm sitting in front of my Stephen King shelf right here. So there's The
Mm.
Stand. But yeah, definitely the book. In fact, I put it on my questionnaire for Survivor as the three things you could take to the island. One of them was The Stand.
Okay.
Because it was so long, I figured it, at least
Hmm.
get me through 39 days.
Yeah, it's just one book, right? It's not like a series.
Nope, one
It's just
book.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never read the. I've only seen the Gary Sinise miniseries, which I watched at least one. They would play it every like Halloween, or they play it once a year on the Sci-Fi channels. I'd make sure to watch it every year. I rewatched it recently as an adult, and it's a bit goofy.
The
I
banana.
did, yeah. Rob Lowe and the guy who plays Patrick Star on SpongeBob. Their characters are a bit out there. And what's his name? Trash Can Man.
Oh yeah. Oh
Trash.
gosh. If you thought that trash can man was out there, you should have seen Ezra Miller in the new one. It
Oh,
is.
really?
I'm like, I don't know why he, his agent, the director, the writer, any of them let him do this. It's not good.
Okay. All right. Well, now that we got the important stuff out of the way, let's. I
Yeah,
guess we could.
let me look up what the stands is really quick. I'm
For the Survivor faithful.
Okay. So, if you had beat Chris and Fire, would you have won the game?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Uh, yeah, it would have. I don't think it would have been a clean sweep. I think there's one person that would not have voted for me, but I think I would have had most everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that
Yeah.
30
Um,
seconds
uh,
quicker than that fire could have made a big difference.
yeah. So besides obviously, if you had won the fire making challenge, or if you had won the final immunity, have you thought of if you had won final immunity, who you would have pitted against each other to make the fire?
Oh sure, I would have gone with Chris to the finals, and I would have
Hmm.
had Gavin and Julie make fire against each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
beside,
I loved all three of them, but at that point, I had been waiting so long to work with anybody, and no one was working with me. And Chris was my great friend from Edge of Extinction, so when he got back in, it was so nice to be working with him. And I was not. I was probably even less threatened by him than I should have been. I would have beat him in Final Tribal, no problem either. But I didn't think he was going to beat Gavin the way he did. So I definitely underestimated the threat level he was, and I would have been very happy to take him and say, Gavin,
Mhm.
Julie, I love you guys, but this is what you get for doing me wrong.
Mhm.
Not actually doing me wrong, but just not playing with me for the last several, weeks.
Yeah, I gotcha. To go back because we obviously have some more questions about your season. But to go back before your season, I was doing a little research, and I know your dad was an airborne Army Ranger, if I
Yes,
had that
sir.
correct. I was curious if, in your opinion, there was anything because I know he was a big inspiration for you. So you probably obviously took a lot of lessons or advice throughout the years. Do you think there was anything like notable that he taught or instilled in you growing up that helped while you were on the island to get you so far?
I think definitely. My dad's funny because it's like I'm always trying to live up to this standard, which is all in my head, not from him at all. Like he's always just
Hmm.
like, I'm very proud of you. Make your own decisions. But he's a West Point grad. He was 20 years in the Army. Like he's just a very impressive guy, who I obviously love very much. And definitely when I was out there, I thought a lot about like his stories of Ranger School in Georgia, of just like freezing and starving. And they didn't have TV cameras around. So when I was freezing and starving out there, it's like, hey, at least I get to do it in front of an audience. Like that's a big difference mentally. You know what I mean? And then we always watch Survivor together. He's a big Survivor fan. And one of his big things, he hasn't been out there, but I believe this is he watches the family visits and he watches all this stuff. And he's just like, we got troops deployed for 6 months, and some of these special forces guys go months without talking to their family. So he always thought it was a little overwrought. That might be why when Becca came out, like for the loved ones visit, we both were a little surprised. Like we weren't crying at all. We were very happy to see each other and all smiles. And it was just this great thing. And I don't think that was necessarily because my dad, but definitely afterwards, I was like, oh, my dad's going to be so happy about that. Like that was just, but yeah, so I thought about him a lot and just kind of the things that he and other military people had been through. And it's just like, again, we're playing a game. This is fun. I know exactly when the deadline is, which again makes a huge mental difference. And it made things a lot easier, just that perspective.
Does he have a favorite season or a favorite player?
Definitely. Season 38, Rick Devens. Our family, I thought I was a super fan. I sold myself as a super fan all the way through casting. I'd never missed an episode. I loved it. And then I got out on the island, and first in my Manu tribe, War Dog and Chris Underwood are talking about like RHAP and how many times they've rewatched a season, and I had never rewatched a season, and I realized I was not a super fan. Like I was a major casual. And my whole family's very casual. So like our favorites were Boston Rob. Our favorite, we love Cochran, and I still love these guys. But I was not like breaking it down, telling you why seasons were awful. Like I had never even considered that there was such thing as a bad Survivor season. So yeah, we're like Boston Rob, Colby, all those ones that are supposed to kind of be your favorites were our favorites. Ty, all those guys.
That's awesome. After you got back after the game, what was it like going back to your job? Like how was that different?
It was first of all, I had to go right back to my job. Like I got back and then I think I had a day and I was at work. And at the time it was horrible. I needed more time to adjust. But I also think it really getting back into the swing of things and having to parent and all that stuff, it really made it so I didn't have many problems adjusting. My first day at work, there was one moment when I'm in talking to my co-anchor Ashley and Tavares, a reporter, and these two are both my great friends, and all three of us were talking, and then they kind of left the studio together, and I thought, they're plotting against me. Like, they're working against me. And was like, whoa, no, I'm back in real life. But I do think if I was coming back to not work and not like a family I was living with, if I was just alone, like I think that it's got to be a lot harder for people who have more time to just think, because you can get lost in it, but life was just way too busy for me, and I think it was a good thing.
Yeah. To go into like your season in particular, it was kind of an interesting case with your character because it felt like we saw so many different, usually it seems like the editors are like, okay, this is going to be like the annoying guy. This is going to be the charming guy. This is going to be the player. But it seemed like your character that they portrayed you as went through like a couple different evolutions of, going through, sometimes you were laid back, sometimes you were like the mischievous underdog, sometimes you were, the funny guy, sometimes you were the all in playing at 100%. Like, I guess the two questions I wanted to know is like, which of those do you think is closest to who you really are? And like, were you happy overall with the edit that you got from the show?
I was thrilled with the edit, and of course the big story is that I got so much of the edit. So when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, they told my story for sure. And even you talking about that, it's like they showed me when I got emotional and made, bad decisions. They showed me when I started gaining confidence and it paid off and I started winning stuff. They showed me when I really thought stuff through and it was great, and then they showed me when I just didn't and it wasn't. So it really was my whole story, because that's how it is out there. It's like, 1 second you're really doubting yourself, the next second you're really gaining confidence. And that is exactly what happened with me. I mean, I got voted off 4th, which was a nightmare, and you're trying to come to terms with that, but still keep your head in the game. Then I got back in, but then they never really let me back in. It's like, even when I got back in the game, no one ever legitimately came at me with an alliance other than David. Like, that stuff was set. So, that starts beating me down. That's, I get emotional with my response to War Dog, Yeah, I want to work with you, except, no, I never want to work with you. I probably should have kept that to myself. It's just, in my head said, no, I'm never going to work with you guys. I'm not an idiot. You, Lauren, and Kelly care nothing about me as a player in this game. Like, obviously, that would be a bad decision. But then as I started going, so I was real happy with the edit, and I understand that people on my cast that I love dearly didn't get some of the time that they deserve. but I certainly, as an individual, have no complaints about it. And the highs and lows were, I mean, that comes with the game, and I feel real fortunate that they were able to show both of them.
Yeah, they definitely showed your non-linear path. But
and the one that's most like me is probably the one that you see pre me getting voted out, where I'm just like laid back and having fun, and everyone's like, "Oh, Devens is cool." And you even see the episode I voted out, Lauren and Kelly are like, "If we merge, like, he's gonna have a social game. Like, they're going to want to play with him." And that's one of the reasons they vote me out at that, like, very emotional tribal. That's probably the real me in real life. And then everything after the merge was me with the great thing about Survivors. You have that singular focus. And I was just like, I've never been more gung-ho for something in my life after I got back in from the merge. So that was a me I wish I could bring into the real world more often.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Like, your mentality after you got voted out, like, we just saw you kind of flip a switch and just kick it into overdrive. Like, was that something that you were planning on the edge, or was it just like, I got a second chance, I got to make the most of it?
Yeah, I think on the edge, I just realized, again, you think about the episode I was voted out and how emotional it was at Tribal, and it came down to War Dog. And it was really up in the air. Like, I felt like there was a really good chance it was me, but I also felt like there was about an equal chance it was Lauren. I wasn't going to be surprised either way. And at the time, I was so scared to push the scales and make it me instead of Lauren that I didn't do the stuff I should have done. Like, go crazy out for an idol, start making promises to War Dog, consider throwing David under the bus. Cause this is, I didn't know the edge was going to exist. If that had been my one shot at Survivor, as much as I love David, it's like, wow, I should have tried harder to be there. So all that stuff's running through your head on the edge. So when I got back into the game and then realized, Lauren and Kelly and War Dog to a little bit lesser degree are for really, there was no reason for them to come at me the way they did when I first got back in. So all that stuff combined was just like, nah. Like, it's on now. And it's like that pickup basketball game mentality came. And with that came some bad emotional decisions. But luckily, the other things were able to carry the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed another thing with your, the character they showed you as on the screen was, it seemed like it was all Survivor stuff. Like, it was all strategy stuff, or, mounting your comeback or your idol finds. And I think that kind of reflects a bit of, what Survivor has sort of become overall, where they've not shown as much of, like, the hardships or the everyone freezing together at night, or the rain, or just the survival aspect, which I'm sure still exists to an extent, to a great extent. But maybe it's just the fans are calling to for it all to be strategy or whatever. But so I'm sure there was some sort of emotional toll that Survivor took on you, if I'm not wrong. So, like, what was that like the emotional weight, I guess, that the show put on you, or being on the island put on you? And like, is there anything you would wish you could go back and tell yourself to like expect or to prepare for that like production didn't tell you, or you wouldn't know from watching the show?
I think what I would go back and tell myself, I luckily didn't need to tell myself, which was make sure you got some weight on you when you go out there. Because I mean, 100% people are like, oh, the last episodes are all Devens. And as much as I'm sure that, like, I know for a fact that the other people out there were talking a lot of strategy, they were doing it in stasis, they were tired, man. Like Gavin, Victoria, Julie, Lauren, they all came into the game in great shape and lost a ton of weight. And they were dying out there and literally could not keep up with me. I mean, they talk about it at Tribal, like Rick ran away and I couldn't catch him. Like Lauren, the collegiate athlete, Gavin, you can look at Gavin and I. They should be able to catch me, and they couldn't. And I think that's because I had body fat to burn. It's definitely because I was less comfortable in the game. Like I knew exactly where I stood. And they were still probably at that point I was in where it's like you don't want to shift things too much and put a target on yourself. But like at the end of the game, when they're showing me running around, it's because the other option is camp, just like sitting there. And you know what their strategies are. I mean, there's not that many people at that point. It's like we're either going to get rid of Devens or we're going to get rid of this other person. It doesn't take you that long to show you that. So I think they really tried to show, I think they did a good job of showing the toll through the edge of extinction on our season. Like when those people come out after Chris wins his way back in and they go down the road, they each tell you like how tough this has been, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. And I was the same way on the edge. Like I was pretty down. I remember even coming back and talking about why I voted for Gavin. And I had said, the edge isn't that hard compared to the game. And Aubrey called me out and was like, I remember Devens having a tough time on the edge, thinking about his family. And she's absolutely right. And I didn't mean it that way. I mean, the game is really hard strategically. It's hard to stay in the game. Whereas the edge, it just beats you down. Like you just feel like a failure. Like the only reason you're there is because you failed to an extent. So yeah, it definitely wears on you. We got really lucky with the weather. We had one bad night. Night 3, Reem's first night on the edge alone. Like it must have just been a nightmare. Because I mean, I was with the whole group of Manu. We were in a big pile of ball, like trying to crack jokes, and it was still the most miserable night of my life. So I can't even imagine what Reem went through. But that was really the only bad night of rain. So we got really lucky. David versus Goliath was in the wet season, obviously. And then, I lost 31 pounds by the end, which was great for me because I had 31 pounds to lose. But some of those guys that came in better shape, I mean, they're malnourished, whereas I'm like in the best shape of my life and feeling good because I'm safe tonight, So it was really, I was probably feeling better at the end of the game than I had the entire game.
Yeah, that's a great scene. That's a great scene when you're running around with the idol and you're like, they can't catch me. I already have the idol and they're looking for it.
And that is how tired they were. That I was like, I already have the idol, but if I can make them run around after me, then like they're going to be emotionally and physically just worn out. That helps me in the challenge. Like that's all I could do at that point. None of them would help me. So everything I was like, I'll try to make them emotionally and physically and tired. I'll go make a fake idol because I have free time. Like I was just literally everything I could do to give myself an advantage. And I had two fake idols that I never used because one was a horrible, horrible disaster and the other was too good. And when I found my first real one, I was like, oh, that's too good. I need to make a crappier one. And I made 2 crappier ones.
Gotcha. To take it, and then we kind of touched on like the end game part a bit, but like I wanted to ask, like besides obviously winning the final immunity or winning the fire challenge, besides those two, like is there anything else looking back that you think you could have done that potentially would have led you to the final 3?
Oh, 100%. If I had not given Chris half the idol back, if I just held on to it when he gave it to me, I think I would have. I would have gone up against Gavin or Julie in fire or Lauren either I would have won the thing because Chris wasn't there. Although I really don't think I would have won that challenge. I came at it out of the gate although I guess Chris came out of the gate in the right way, just really slow. So literally he never messed up. Like none of us ever would have caught him. All the rest of us came out the wrong way. So maybe I would have won because the others also did it the wrong way, but I don't think so. I was too jacked up, and that was a nuanced challenge. But I would have ended up in fire making against one of those three, and I'm so confident. You never know, and maybe they'd say they're as confident, but I'd made way more fire. Like I'd spent a week at that point just sneaking off and making fire because I knew it was coming. And you see with Chris, like his was the producers say Chris's was the fastest fire they'd ever seen, and like my fire is it's going like it needed like 30 more seconds. So I made a really fast fire. I think I would have won. But I gave Chris that half idol back, and I still have mixed feelings. Like I love Chris. Chris is a great friend, and I'm glad that I have that relationship. I think I still would have had it because Chris is that kind of guy. Like I think he's forgiven, but I don't know, man. To screw him over twice, to screw him over the first time, and then go out on the edge and like legitimately make up with him, and he was so cool about it. And like I told him, and I meant it, like I'm never gonna do this to you again. Like we're good. So to do it again would have been really tough. It also, I mean, that day was the day that they were finding the hidden idols, and Chris was my buddy in that. Like we were laughing and having fun together, and the whole day just would have been different. Like I would have been knowing that I'm gonna keep it from him tonight, because that's what I would have told him. I said, "Oh, I'll give it to you tonight at Tribal. It'll be a big show." And then at Tribal, I would have held it from him so that I didn't have to deal with it all day. But I would have known it would have just ruined like the best day of my Survivor life. Probably worth it for $1 million. But at the same time, I'm like, I know why I did it. It wasn't a great game move. It was a person move. And I'm at peace with it.
Yeah.
I'm buying him a beer. He's buying every beer.
Yeah, I wanted to ask because I'm sure, like I know you're active on social media. I'm sure you seem to be one of the more active members in the Survivor community. Yeah.
I'm one of the more thirsty survivors.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to. I mean, I'm sure you've seen and know that kind of like the general consensus is that most Survivor fans consider, and I won't speak on me and Gideon's opinion, but most Survivor fans seem to put Chris in kind of like that lower tier of winners, if not at the absolute bottom. I mean, there's some fans that will argue and say he took advantage of the theme of the season, had an incredible performance in the finale. So being the guy who was out there with them, like how do you perceive Chris's win?
I mean, I think it was it's really hard to win Survivor, and when you go out there, it's like even harder. He benefited from the theme of the season. There's no doubt about it. I voted for Gavin because I thought what Gavin did was harder because I wasn't able to do it. I wasn't able to stay in the game the whole time without getting votes. But what Chris did was really impressive to come back through. So as far as like tiers of winners go, I'm always surprised that the actual winners let that stuff bug them. It's like you got $1 million and these people are sitting at home watching, telling you that they think
big
Russell should have won. Russell's the most deserving winner ever. It's like that's one thing I learned from being on Survivor is I always thought Russell should have won, and then after playing out there, I'm like, no way ever would I vote for someone who I thought was a jerk. Like if we got to the end and I thought that you were the best, like played the most amazing game, but were an actual jerk, not just like rub people the wrong way in the game, but I thought like this guy in his life is probably a bad guy. I'm never going to give you $1 million. I just spent 39 days out here to earn the right to not give you $1 million. So like you learn a lot being out there, and it's like, I think, I'll say right now, I think the Edge of Extinction was really unfair to Gavin. Including the benefits to myself, because he had to burn everybody that was on the jury, and Chris didn't have to burn any of them. And not only that, but Chris was there to comfort him, and Gavin never got to speak to him again before Final Tribal.
Right.
And so Gavin played to his strengths the entire time to get to Final Tribal, and he'd be the first to tell you that like his strengths aren't great for Final Tribal. Like, he doesn't want to speak publicly in front of all these cameras and all these people that are mad at him, and like his idol Jeff Probst, like that makes him very nervous, you know. So it's hard to plead his case. So yeah, it was really unfair to Gavin. It was the theme of the season. I love that Survivor changes the theme because it's not baseball. You know, you don't need to have the same stats. I like that they change it up and then just go right back to whatever they want to do. And I think Chris, you know, he got the job done. So good for him, man. It's hard to get people to vote for you. And there's a lot of people. I'll tell you this much as it's easy to look at Chris and be like, he was on the edge with these people. That's a big advantage. I can tell you from what I hear that there are people that went to the edge and hurt their standing with people. You know, that they spent more time on the edge with people, and those people on the edge thought less of them afterwards. So the fact that they thought more of Chris and loved him more, I think says something about him. And the fact that he was able to stay in the game like some people weren't.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, we saw in Winners at War a person come back from the edge, and then people in the jury are like, oh, we don't like you because of how you treated us on the edge. So, I mean, yeah, you can definitely mess up your game on the edge.
Yeah.
I know some people don't like the edge twist, but I like the edge twist on Edge of Extinction because, you know, without the edge, then you're fourth boot and we don't get to see the Devens magic. So
100% Gideon. I loved it on my season because I benefited. And
yes.
I actually really loved it on Winners at War just because the way it turned out with I still wish they had that second person coming earlier. But I would have been really disappointed to lose all the old schoolers and not see him again. I'm glad we at least got to keep track of them.
Yeah.
Although, again, like, I wasn't real happy. I could not believe the way life imitated art in terms of it coming down to the exact same ending almost. But Natalie not having that Chris Underwood guts to go for fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. So the kind of the last question I wanted to ask here before we let you go is, and I'm not saying this just because you're a guest on the show, but I was telling this to Gideon before you came on, but
we were coming to a consensus.
If you look at all the one-time players who we think the fans want to come back more, or the absolute locks to come back. We think it's like you and Dom from Ghost Island, like right up there at the top for like one-time players that have to, that are pretty much locks to come back. And so I guess one is, I mean, would you want to? I feel like you'd want to. I know we talked about it before, but if you got to choose the season you got to come back, like, would you want to do like a Blood and Water? Would you want it to be like, you know, Second Chance or like a Legends thing or something of that nature? Like, what would you want to come back? Edge of Extinction 3?
It depends on when I go out. Can I decide after I'm voted out? I would, well, you know, as much as it's like, oh, I'd love to be on like a legendary season that everyone talks about as one of the best. What I'd really love is to win. So I think Fans versus Favorites, Blood versus Water, where half the people aren't these like cutthroat legends would be nice. But you know, if you're on a season called Legends, that would, you know, you just get to brag that you got to be on that season. Second Chances, I think, would be really cool. There's so many people that did a good job their first time out. I'd love to be on all of them. Blood vs. Water is always intriguing to me because I think Becca is just like this. So my wife Becca is this lovable person that people would really like. I think she'd do well out there, but she's also, I mean, she's not someone who's ever wanted to play Survivor at all. It could be a huge disaster. But that one's always intriguing.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Gideon, do you have any last questions for Rick while we got him?
Yeah. I got one more I'll ask because I was interested myself. Sorry, let me fanboy for a second. You know, after you came back in the game, you notoriously found, oh gosh, I can't remember the count, a lot of idols. And you know, we only get to see a little bit on the show. Obviously you were putting in the work. How long did it actually take you to find those?
I was thinking about that just the other day because I got a questionnaire thing from Dalton Ross. I'm like, okay. I found so I got one when I came back, and then that was in half that I split with David, and then I found 3. And it's so funny because people are like, "Oh, Devin's whole game was idols," and it's like they forget that I didn't find my first idol till the family visit. Like the day of the family visit is when I found my first idol, and I hadn't played an idol on myself before then. The one I played for David. It was all winning challenges up to that point. But that first one, man, I actually, at the family visit, my wife and I had the plan all along. We're going to throw the visit. We're not doing this challenge. Like, we don't want to choose. So,
that is a smart move. Yes, I was thinking if I ever went on Survivor, I'd do the same thing.
Yeah, so you see it. Like, I'm throwing the water. Like, we're joking. We're having a good time. Like, we're not even trying. And we were so happy to see each other. Like, it was weird going back to camp because, like, Lauren and Victoria were so upset that they didn't get it. And I was just glowing. It's like, oh, I saw my wife. Everyone's okay. But anyway, I told Beck, I was like, listen, I don't think we're going to get picked for this. But if we, and I knew I was in trouble. Like, I knew I was on the line. Ron had given me that fake thing. But I was 90% sure it was fake because it made no sense. So I told Becca, I'm going to go back and I'm going to find a hidden immunity idol. And so we lost. We went back to camp. Lauren and Vic were very upset, and they kind of went off. I thought they were just depressed, but no, they were planning to get Ron out if I got an idol. So they had their own thing going. But that first one, I spent like it had to be at least like 6 or 8 hours that I was just walking around the island. Like, they got back from the family visit, and I was still going and looking and looking. And finally, I didn't even find the idol. I found that clue, and then I still had to climb up in the tree in the middle of the night. So then after that one, each one kind of took less time because I took the risk of not looking where I'd already found it. That was one piece of information I had that no one else did. It could have been hidden in the same exact spot. I'd have been kind of screwed, but it wasn't. So each time took a little bit less time. And then, I find one more, and then the final one I found, the third one I found, we're in a bunch. Like, Julie is right in front of me, and Chris is right behind me. And people say, oh, they handed it to you. It's like, right. Yeah, with these two sandwiching me. And then, so Julie walked right past it, and I picked it up. And again, that's another one I didn't use. I only used 2 of them on me. I played one on Gavin, one on David. So,
yeah.
Awesome. My idols are for the world.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Well, very cool. Rick, this was a pleasure. Thank you again so much for coming on. It was great to talk to you. We're both big fans, so it's cool to talk to some of our favorites.
Yeah, man. Well, I had a good time. You guys, keep up the good work. I like the threat level midnight shirt. You're gonna have to send me a link.
That's right.
Absolutely. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.